Here are my presentation notes. You can see I only have keywords. The back of the paper/cards are blank. You can also see the surface of the table where I will sit my computer is clean and has no other papers on it. Here is my visual aid. It has no other notes for my presentation on it, as you can see. Here is my audience. As you can see, there are more than 6 people here. All right, now I can start my speech. Here you go, Hunter. Dude, it's actually ridiculous.
The best speech I've ever heard.
I know. I'm not going to edit this at all, too. I'm just going to turn it in word for word. So, let me present this. Wait, what?
Using a visual aid not because I want to, but because I am.
Here we go, from the beginning. Wait. Oh, okay. Oh! That's actually really cool. Okay. Alright. So, let me begin my speech. So, I'm sorry. I have to look over my notes for a second. Alright. Hey baby, are you a parking ticket? Because you have fine written all over you. This is an example of flirting that one might see on a day-to-day basis. Now everybody has their flirting preferences, and that means like how they like to flirt with people and how they want people to flirt with them. And motivations for flirting also vary between person to person. So it's difficult to gauge whether flirting is actually flirting or not. So we can use flirting to examine the nonverbal and verbal communication behaviors in interpersonal communication. In this speech, I'm going to define flirting, and then I'm going to explain some of the motivations behind it, and then I'm going to look at styles of flirting and how it varies between genders. And then finally, I'm going to look at a study from 2010 and look at the effectiveness of various flirting strategies. Alright, so flirting consists of all the verbal and nonverbal communication behaviors that encompasses, but is not limited to, courtship. Henningsen, Braz, and Davies defines flirting as a behavior that is ambiguous and goal-motivated and can be sexually motivated in nature. A study done in 2004 shows that there are 6 motivations for flirting. The first one is sexual flirting, which is used to initiate sexual contact, and then there's relational flirting that's used to increase the intimacy of a relationship. Then there's fun flirting, which is used to just enjoy oneself, so it's just flirting just because you can. And then there's exploring, which is to gauge if there's a potential romantic interest between 2 parties. And then there's esteem flirting, which is used to boost one's own self-esteem or boost another person's self-esteem. And then finally, we have instrumental flirting, which is basically seducing someone to get them to do something for you. Because it's very difficult to gauge somebody's motivations behind flirting, it's often misinterpreted. So it's up to us to not miscommunicate to one another flirting and also to interpret flirting in the right manner. All right. So now there are certain behaviors that are typically associated with flirting. So that's like smiling or gentle touching. However, flirting actually varies in many styles. So according to a study done in 2010, there are 5 styles to flirting. So the first style is the traditional style, so that's kind of like with your gender roles and everything, basically adhering to that. So the men's going to do verbal contact, and then the female's gonna reciprocate feelings somewhat and show her receptiveness, typically non-verbally. So females in the traditional flirting are going to palm more often, so that's going to show their open palm, and they're going to tease the male more often. Males are typically going to have their legs spread more often. They might lean in towards the female, and they actually speak with a higher pitch of voice. The next type of flirting is physical flirting. So that's typically sexual in nature, and it involves actual touching. So females in physical flirting will ask fewer questions in the conversation and actually touch themselves less. And then males are going to compliment the females less interestingly, and they're going to flirtatiously glance less. The third flirting style is the sincere style, which is typically the most desirable style because of its honesty. Its goal is to create an emotional bond with the other person. So females in this style will paw more often, but they'll also smile and laugh more often. Males will speak in a higher pitch, and they'll avoid crossing their arms and legs. The fourth style is the playful style, and that's typically associated with the fun motivation. So it's just flirting just to flirt. And then typically both parties in this case will protrude their chest more often, and then females will shrug more and they'll ask less questions. And then males will compliment the female more and cross their legs less. The last style is the polite style, and that's more of a conservative style. It's kind of like the traditional style, but more conservative in that sense. People who practice the polite flirting style are usually going to consider themselves to be in the friend zone because their motivations aren't typically seen very well through this style because it's so polite. So in this style, females are going to ask less questions, and males are going to be more agreeable, and they're going to tease the female more. So now we're going to look at a study conducted in 2010 to see the effectiveness of various opening lines. So opening lines, also known as pickup lines. So basically, there's a study conducted at a university. They wanted to see the effectiveness and appropriateness of certain pickup lines. So they hired some actors and they filmed a male approaching a female and giving a pickup line, and then they showed it to an audience, and then the audience would rate them on the appropriateness and effect. So the first one was the direct introduction, so it's just going up to someone and saying, hi, my name is Josh, what's your name? And then the second one was a direct compliment. So it was basically saying, hey, you're really fine. The third one was attempt at humor. So the example they used in the study was, hi, do you think I look like Johnny Depp? The problem in the study was that most people did not find that funny. So yeah, it kind of ruined their study just a little bit. So the researchers had a miscommunication there. So the next one was a cute flippant line, which is an attempt to be cute. So then, I believe the example they used was, hey, are you tired because you've been running through my mind all day? Something weird like that. And then the last one was a third-party introduction where it was like, hey, Kayla, this is my friend Josh. So looking at the study, the most popular ones are in this order here. So the third-party introduction was actually the best, like by far, followed by the direct introduction. And then the last three, direct compliment, humor, and cute flippant, are actually all really close together towards the bottom of the table. So very interestingly, the least openly flirtatious ones, the third-party introduction and direct introduction, were the most effective lines in that sense. So that kind of promotes the fact that ambiguity is good in flirting, and it's a large component of flirtation. As you can see, all of these are not equal, and some are better than others. So when you're flirting, you have to be careful about what flirting style you choose and what flirting strategies you use, all that verbal and nonverbal communication. So in the speech, we defined flirtation, and then we looked at the motivations behind flirtation, and then what did we do? We looked at the various styles between flirting, and then we looked at how flirting differs between males and females, and looked at the nonverbal and verbal communications behind that. And then Lastly, we looked at the study and looked at the effectiveness of various pickup lines and flirtation strategies. So we can use a study of flirtation to be able to understand the interpersonal communication between male and female in both platonic and romantic relationships, because it consists of nonverbal and verbal communications. And with this information, you can probably reassess your own flirting communication and maybe understand why that special someone isn't getting it. Thank you. I have to say some last homework. What do I need to say? Pan around the room again, Hunter.
You did so good you gained an additional audience member
Yeah.
in that speech.
Yeah, that's got at least one letter.
Yeah.
Alright,
Bonus points?
I don't know. It says you should pan around the room again so that your instructor will be able to see that your audience is still present and nothing changed in the room. That's okay.
Oh no.
Oh no.
You changed.
Alright,
Get out.
I'm done.
Okay.